The Los Diablos bandits thought they'd found easy prey when they stormed into Santa Rosa Mission during evening mass. They'd been terrorizing the Mexico-Texas borderlands for months, running a brutal smuggling operation and crushing anyone who defied them. But when they threatened Sister Angela Ramirez's refugee sanctuary, they made one fatal mistake. They didn't know that before taking her vows, she had led one of Latin America's most successful resistance movements, commanding over 2,000 fighters. In their battle, before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The autumn wind carried dust and tension across the sun-baked courtyard of Santa Rosa Mission as Sister Angela Ramirez arranged flowers at the weathered stone altar. Shafts of late-afternoon light filtered through stained glass windows, casting rainbow patterns across the ancient wooden pews. At 58, her movements remained precise and controlled, each gesture carrying the measured efficiency of someone who had once commanded armies, though few now knew that truth. "Sister Angela?" Young Miguel Torres appeared at the chapel entrance, clutching his schoolbook nervously. "Can I study here again? Papa says the bandits were at our store today." "Of course, pequeño." Sister Angela's voice carried the warmth that had made her beloved in this border community for the past decade. "Have you eaten?" When Miguel shook his head, she gestured toward the mission's kitchen. "Sister Carmen just finished making tamales. Why don't you help yourself?" As Miguel hurried toward the promise of food, Father Gabriel Martinez emerged from the confessional, his weathered face creased with concern. "Another of your strays, Angela." His father refused to pay the bandits' protection fee. "Sister." Angela's voice hardened slightly. "The Los Diablos are getting bolder, moving closer to the mission district." Sister Angela touched the simple wooden cross at her neck, so different from the combat knife she'd once carried as Commander Ana La Leona Ramirez. "This community has survived hard times before, Father." "Not like this." Father Gabriel moved to the window, watching dust devils dance across the mission's courtyard. "These men, they're not just ordinary criminals. They're organized, well-armed. They have connections on both sides of the border. The police seem helpless or unwilling to interfere." The distant rumble of pickup trucks cut through their conversation. Father Gabriel's expression darkened as 3 modified vehicles pulled into the mission's parking area, their matte black paint and reinforced bumpers speaking of cartel money. Speaking of devils. Their leader, Marco El Coyote Herrera, cut an imposing figure as he stepped down from the lead vehicle. His designer clothes couldn't hide the predatory grace of a man who'd carved his territory through violence. 2 more bandits flanked him, El Tigre Rodriguez and El Serpiente Ortiz, their reputations for brutality well known along the border. "Get Miguel to the back rooms," Sister Angela instructed quietly. "Use the old mission tunnels if needed." "Angela," Father Gabriel hesitated, "perhaps we should call the police." "And risk them hurting someone else because we showed fear?" "No. God's house remains open to all, Father, even those who've lost their way." The heavy wooden doors swung open. El Coyote entered first, his boots echoing on the stone floor. Sister Angela continued arranging flowers, her movements unhurried, though her mind was already cataloguing tactical positions, escape routes, potential weapons, old habits that had kept her alive during years of guerrilla warfare. "Sister Angela Ramirez." El Coyote's voice carried forced politeness that somehow made him more threatening. "Hope we're not interrupting prayer time." "God's ears are always open, Senor Herrera," Sister Angela replied calmly, using his real name. "Though he might appreciate if you removed your hat in his house." A dangerous smile crossed El Coyote's face as he slowly removed his baseball cap. "Funny, most people around here don't use my real name anymore. God knew you as Marco before. You chose to be El Coyote." Sister Angela replied, just as he knows why you're really here. El Tigre moved toward the altar, running a gloved hand along the polished wood. Nice place you got here, sister. Be a shame if something happened to it. This mission has stood for 3 centuries, Senor Rodriguez. Sister Angela's voice remained steady. It survived revolutions, earthquakes, and men who thought themselves more powerful than faith. El Coyote's smile faded. Times are changing, sister. The borderlands are changing. Smart people are choosing to adapt, to accept protection. We're already protected. By what? El Serpiente laughed harshly. Prayer beads and holy water. Don't think that'll stop accidents from happening, El Tigre added. Windows break, candles fall over. Is that what happened to Miguel's father's store? An accident? El Coyote stepped closer, using his height to loom over the nun. You run a lot of programs here, sister. Feed the hungry, help refugees, shelter the homeless. Noble work. Would be terrible if something interfered with that. Sister Angela met his gaze steadily, remembering other men who'd tried to intimidate her, men who now lay in unmarked graves across Latin America. Are you threatening God's work, Senor Herrera? The confrontation carried the weight of imminent violence, but in Sister Angela's mind, another calculation was taking place, one born from years of guerrilla warfare. She wasn't just a nun facing bandits anymore. She was a veteran commander assessing a tactical situation, identifying weaknesses, planning contingencies. The skills that had once led an army hadn't disappeared. They'd simply been redirected toward a different kind of service. This was going to require careful handling, not just to protect the mission, but to shield her charges from the violence she knew was coming. Because Sister Angela Ramirez understood something the Los Diablos didn't. Sometimes the most dangerous predator isn't the one showing its teeth, but the one hiding in plain sight, waiting for the right moment to strike. Sister Angela watched the Los Diablos depart, their trucks kicking up dust clouds in the mission's courtyard. Only when their engines faded into distance did she allow her posture to shift subtly, muscle memory from another life reasserting itself as she assessed the situation with the commander's eye. Father Gabriel emerged from the back rooms with Miguel. Angela, they're demanding $3,000 a month. Protection money. They say it's a special rate for the mission. He watched her carefully. You didn't seem afraid. Fear is a choice, Father, Sister Angela replied, moving to secure the mission's doors. Her movements were precise, economical, nothing like the slightly stooped posture she usually maintained, one I learned to reject long ago. Sister Carmen, who had been listening from the kitchen, approached with concern. What do we do? The police won't help. The Los Diablos own half the department. We can't match their firepower. A ghost of a smile crossed Sister Angela's face. Firepower isn't everything, Carmen. I learned that in Nicaragua. She paused, realizing she'd said more than intended. For 10 years, she'd kept her past buried, focusing on serving God and her community. But now, watching Miguel tremble in Father Gabriel's arms, she knew that past might be the only thing that could save their future. Sister. Father Gabriel studied her carefully. What exactly happened in Nicaragua? Sister Angela moved to the altar, touching the cross that had replaced her combat medals. Before I took my vows, before I found my true calling, I was someone else. Someone who fought against men like these, men who prey on the vulnerable, who use violence to control communities. She led them to her sparse quarters, kneeling beside her narrow bed to pull out an old wooden box. Inside lay newspaper clippings, yellowed with age but carefully preserved. The headlines, in Spanish and English, told fragments of a story. Rebel. Commander strikes military convoy. La Leona's forces liberate village. Female guerrilla leader evades capture. Father Gabriel's eyes widened as he read, Ana Ramirez, the resistance commander. He looked at Sister Angela with new understanding. That was you. Sister Angela, once Commander Ana Ramirez, nodded slowly. For 8 years, I led the People's Liberation Army against the military junta. We started with 50 fighters, grew to over 2,000. We protected villages, disrupted illegal operations, fought those who thought power gave them the right to abuse others. She spread out more clippings, revealing a younger version of herself in combat fatigues, standing among armed fighters. We weren't just soldiers, we were teachers, healers, builders. We showed communities they could resist oppression, that unity was stronger than fear. But the history books say La Leona disappeared after the peace accords, Sister Carmen whispered. Some thought she was killed, others said she fled to Europe. I found something more powerful than resistance, Sister Angela replied. Quietly, I found forgiveness, found that healing communities could accomplish more than fighting for them. So Ana Ramirez disappeared and Sister Angela was born. Father Gabriel sat heavily in the room's single chair. All these years, the way you organized our programs, how you always seemed to know when trouble was coming, your ability to negotiate with street gangs. Old habits, Sister Angela admitted. Different methods serving a different cause. She began returning the clippings to their box, but now those skills might be needed again. The Los Diablos aren't just bandits. Their operation is too sophisticated, their equipment too professional. They're part of something bigger. You're not thinking of... Father Gabriel trailed off, shocked. Fighting them? No. Violence only breeds more violence. I learned that lesson well. Sister Angela's voice carried the weight of hard-won wisdom. But protecting our community, our people, that I can do. La Leona knew how to wage war. Sister Angela knows how to wage peace. Sometimes they're not so different. She moved to the window, watching children play in the mission's courtyard, watching parents hurry past with worried glances over their shoulders. The Los Diablos think they're predators, but they've forgotten something important. Real lions don't hunt for sport or power. They hunt to protect their pride. Sister Carmen touched her rosary nervously. What are you going to do? First, we gather information. No successful campaign starts without understanding the enemy. Sister Angela's voice took on a familiar tone of command, though softened by years of spiritual service. We need to know their patterns, their weaknesses, their true purpose here. Then we build our resistance, not with guns this time, but with community. The people are too afraid, Father Gabriel protested. People are always afraid at first, Sister Angela replied. Fear is the weapon of tyrants. But I've seen farmers stand against armies, villagers defy death squads. When people unite, when they find their courage, no force can resist them. She returned to her box, pulling out one final item, a worn notebook filled with tactical annotations and strategic analyses. The Los Diablos gave us until Friday. That gives us 3 days to prepare. They think they're dealing with a helpless nun and her frightened flock. They're about to learn what La Leona's children are truly capable of. As night fell over Santa Rosa Mission, Sister Angela Ramirez knelt in prayer. But her prayers weren't just for divine intervention. They were for strength to protect her community, wisdom to guide her actions, and forgiveness for what she might need to do. Because while Sister Angela had left violence behind, she hadn't forgotten its lessons. The Los Diablos were about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous force isn't the one that bares its teeth, but the one that watches, waits, and knows exactly when to strike. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The dawn light had barely touched Santa Rosa Mission's bell tower when Sister Angela began her preparations. Years of leading resistance operations had taught her that information and community networks were more powerful than any weapon. She started in the mission's kitchen, where the morning bread distribution would bring dozens of local residents seeking both physical and spiritual nourishment. "Maria," she called softly to a middle-aged woman who worked at the local mercado. "Stay a moment after the others leave." One by one, she identified key contacts throughout the morning. Shopkeepers, teachers, street vendors, all perfectly positioned to observe the Los Diablos movements without drawing attention. Father Gabriel watched with growing understanding as Sister Angela methodically built her intelligence network. Each conversation seemed casual, yet carried subtle purpose. By noon, she had established observation points covering most of the Los Diablos known territory. "You haven't lost your touch," he commented as they sorted food donations, "though I notice you're being selective about who you trust." Sister Angela nodded, her hands moving efficiently through the supplies. "In Nicaragua, we learned the hard way about infiltrators. The best networks are built on people with deep community ties, those who have something precious to protect. Los Diablos might buy loyalty, but they can't buy the kind of commitment that comes from defending one's home." Her first report came during afternoon prayers. Elena, who sold flowers near the town square, whispered about unusual shipments arriving at the Los Diablos warehouse, heavy crates transferred under cover of darkness. Jorge, whose shoe repair shop offered perfect surveillance of the main street, reported increased activity among senior cartel members. "Something's making them nervous," Sister Angela mused, making careful notes in a small notebook similar to the ones she'd used during the revolution. "They're too organized, too well-equipped for simple bandits. This protection racket, it's a cover for something bigger." Sister Carmen brought more intelligence as she returned from her rounds visiting the sick. "The Los Diablos are recruiting young men from the poorest neighborhoods," she reported, "offering them money, but also something else. They're talking about special training and international opportunities." Sister Angela's expression darkened. "Human trafficking? Possibly, but it feels different, more organized. They're being selective about who they approach, choosing those with military potential." The pattern was becoming clearer, triggering memories of similar operations she'd encountered during the rebellion. "They're building an army," she realized. But for what purpose? And who's really commanding them? As afternoon faded into evening, Sister Angela met with Miguel's father, Eduardo Torres, in the mission's confessional. Not for spiritual guidance, but for strategic planning. As owner of the local hardware store, he was perfectly positioned to monitor supply movements. "They're buying industrial chemicals," Eduardo reported quietly. "Components that could be used for drug manufacturing, but also for explosives. And they're bringing in radio equipment, surveillance gear, military-grade stuff." Sister Angela's tactical mind processed the information. The Los Diablos aren't just extorting protection money. They're establishing infrastructure, creating a base of operations, but they need to control the community first. That's why they're targeting businesses, intimidating residents. Her next meeting was with Isabella Vargas, a retired school teacher, whose grandson worked as a mechanic in the Los Diablos garage. "They're modifying vehicles," Isabella whispered, "adding hidden compartments, reinforcing frames. But it's not just for smuggling. They're building something bigger, more organized." As night fell, Sister Angela reviewed her notes in her quarters, patterns emerging that reminded her of operations she'd fought against years ago. The Los Diablos weren't just criminals. They were proxies for someone else, someone with military experience and significant resources. "Sister," young Miguel appeared at her door, clutching a folded paper. "Papa said to give you this." The crude map showed warehouse locations, patrol routes, guard positions, all carefully observed by community members who'd found their courage. "Gracias, pequeño," she smiled, reviewing the intelligence. The Los Diablos had inadvertently helped her by creating fear. They'd forced the community to become observant, watchful, aware of every strange vehicle or unfamiliar face. Later that night, Sister Angela knelt in the chapel, but her prayers were interrupted by approaching footsteps. She tensed, years of combat instinct taking over, but it was only Father Gabriel. "The people are responding," he observed. "They're starting to trust, to believe change is possible." "Fear isolates," Sister Angela replied, remembering lessons learned in countless villages across Nicaragua. "But hope connects. Every person who chooses to resist, to share information, to stand with their neighbors, they weaken the Los Diablos' real power." She spread her notes across the altar, an irony not lost on her that she was planning resistance operations in the same place she usually offered communion. But perhaps they weren't so different. Both involved faith, community, and the transformation of ordinary people into something stronger. "Tomorrow," she announced, "we expand our network. The Los Diablos think they control this territory, but they've forgotten something crucial. Territory isn't just about physical space. It's about people, about relationships, about the invisible bonds that connect a community." Father Gabriel studied the makeshift intelligence reports. "They'll retaliate when they realize what's happening." "Of course," Sister Angela agreed. "But by then, it will be too late. Because while they're watching for weapons, for obvious resistance, we're building something far more powerful, a community that's no longer afraid." As midnight approached, Sister Angela made one final note in her tactical journal. The Los Diablos had given them until Friday to pay protection money. They didn't realize that with every threat, every act of intimidation, they were actually strengthening the very network that would eventually ensure their downfall. Because while Sister Angela had left violence behind, she hadn't forgotten the most important lesson of her guerrilla days. The strongest weapon against tyranny isn't firearms or explosives. It's the united will of people who've decided to be free. Dawn broke over Santa Rosa Mission as Sister Angela reviewed her growing network of intelligence. In just 24 hours, the community had begun transforming from isolated victims into connected observers. At the morning bread distribution, she noticed subtle changes, people lingering longer, exchanging quiet words, making eye contact instead of hurrying away in fear. 3 more Los Diablos trucks arrived last night, Maria whispered as she collected her daily bread ration. "They're using the old granary on Calle Rosario now. Heavy security, but something's different. They're nervous, checking shadows, jumping at sounds." Sister Angela nodded slightly, maintaining her practiced appearance of serene detachment. "And the new recruits?" 4 more young men taken yesterday. But Jorge's son refused them. First time anyone's dared. He said seeing Miguel's father stand up at the hardware store gave him courage. The morning progressed, with more reports filtering in through her carefully constructed network. Each piece of information revealed not just the Los Diablos operations, but also growing cracks in their facade of control. Eduardo Torres had reopened his hardware store, and though Los Diablos members circled the building repeatedly, they didn't enter. Word of his defiance had spread, inspiring others. Sister Carmen returned from her morning rounds with more observations. "The fruit vendors in the market are talking to each other now, coordinating. When Los Diablos came for their protection, money, 3 stands closed simultaneously. The bandits couldn't target them all without drawing attention." "Unity is beginning," Sister Angela commented, remembering similar transformations in Nicaraguan villages. When people realize they're not alone, fear loses its power. But the Los Diablos weren't idle. By midday, reports came of increased patrols, more aggressive questioning of residents. Sister Angela recognized the pattern, the instinctive response. of those who rule through intimidation when they sense their control slipping. "They're searching for something," Isabella Vargas reported during afternoon prayers. "My grandson overheard them in the garage. They know something's changing, but they can't identify what. They're looking for weapons, for obvious signs of resistance." "Let them look," Sister Angela replied quietly. "They won't find what they're searching for because they don't understand what they're fighting." The afternoon brought a confrontation. El Tigre and two subordinates entered the mission during Sister Angela's youth education program. The children tensed, but didn't flee, another small sign of changing attitudes. "Busy day, sister," El Tigre commented, his casual tone belied by predatory eyes scanning the room. "Lots of activity in town, people getting brave, making foolish choices." "People choosing dignity isn't foolish, Senor Rodriguez," Sister Angela replied, continuing to distribute school books. "Though those who mistake fear for respect often confuse the two." El Tigre's expression darkened. "Careful, sister. Some might think you're encouraging rebellion. That would be unfortunate." "I encourage faith, Senor Rodriguez. Faith in God, in community, in the power of unity. If that threatens you, perhaps you should examine why." The exchange was brief, but its impact rippled through the community. By evening, Sister Angela's network reported the story, spreading through homes and businesses, how a simple nun had stood up to El Tigre, had challenged him with words sharper than any weapon. "They'll retaliate," Father Gabriel warned as they secured the mission for the night. "This kind of public defiance can't go unanswered." "Of course they will," Sister Angela agreed, checking the ancient doors with practiced efficiency. "But their retaliation will reveal more about their true nature, their real weaknesses. In Nicaragua, we learned that every act of oppression carries seeds of its own destruction." As if confirming her words, night brought the sound of breaking glass, Los Diablos members smashing windows at Eduardo's hardware store. But this time, something was different. Lights appeared in neighboring buildings, doors opened. People emerged, not to confront the bandits directly, but to stand as witnesses, recording with phones, taking notes, refusing to look away. The Los Diablos withdrew quickly, their usual swagger diminished by this unexpected response. Within an hour, Sister Angela's network reported similar scenes across town, small acts of solidarity, of quiet resistance, spreading like ripples in still water. "It's working," Sister Carmen observed, helping clean broken glass from Eduardo's storefront. "People are finding their courage. They're remembering who they are," Sister Angela corrected, recalling similar moments during the revolution. Courage was never the question. It was always there, waiting for the right moment, the right catalyst to emerge. Later that night, in her sparse quarters, Sister Angela updated her tactical assessment. The Los Diablos were showing classic signs of an organization losing psychological control. Increasing violence, random intimidation, visible frustration, but more importantly, the community was showing signs of awakening unity. "We're not just building resistance," she explained to Father Gabriel during evening prayers. "We're rebuilding connections they tried to break, strengthening bonds they tried to sever. In Nicaragua, we learned that true power isn't in causing fear, it's in helping people overcome it." As midnight approached, Sister Angela made her final notes of the day. The Los Diablos had given them until Friday to submit to their demands. They didn't realize that every hour brought not just new intelligence about their operations, but more importantly, new evidence of a community rediscovering its collective strength. Because while Sister Angela had once led armies against physical enemies, she now understood that the most powerful revolution isn't fought with weapons. It's fought in the hearts and minds of people who decide to stand together against intimidation. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new threats, new attempts at control, but it would also bring more awakening, more unity, more quiet courage emerging from unexpected places. The Los Diablos thought they were fighting a simple nun and her frightened flock. They had yet to realize they were actually fighting something far more powerful, the indomitable spirit of a community that had chosen to be free. The third morning after Los Diablos' initial threat brought escalating tensions to Santa Rosa Mission. Sister Angela's intelligence network reported increased activity across the border town. More vehicles arriving, heavily armed men in civilian clothing conducting surveillance, and communications equipment being installed at key locations. They're preparing for something, Sister Angela observed, reviewing reports in the mission's kitchen while helping Sister Carmen prepare the morning meal. This level of mobilization goes beyond simple intimidation. The question is, what are they anticipating? Her answer came with the morning bread distribution. Maria, the mercado worker, arrived breathless with news. Sister, there's word from the border. Federal agents were found dead last night, an entire checkpoint neutralized. Professional work, military precision. Everyone's saying Los Diablos couldn't have done this alone. Sister Angela's expression remained neutral, but her mind processed the information with practiced tactical assessment. How many casualties? 6 agents, no witnesses, all security cameras disabled beforehand. This confirmed her growing suspicions about Los Diablos' true nature. They're not just bandits or cartel enforcers. This is something else. Special operations level planning, advanced equipment, coordinated execution. Someone's using them as a front. Throughout the morning, more pieces of the puzzle emerged through her carefully constructed intelligence network. Eduardo Torres reported unusual electronic equipment being installed on rooftops. Isabella's grandson observed new arrivals at the Los Diablos compound, men who carried themselves differently, with military bearing and tactical awareness. They're building infrastructure, Sister Angela explained to Father Gabriel during a private meeting in the confessional. Communication systems, surveillance networks, logistical support. This isn't just about controlling our community. We're being prepared as a forward operating base for something bigger. Father Gabriel's concern was evident. Should we notify authorities? Which ones? Sister Angela's voice carried years of hard-earned cynicism. The local police are compromised. State authorities are likely infiltrated. And after last night's border incident, we can't be certain who to trust at the federal level. The afternoon brought more provocations. Los Diablos members conducted aggressive patrols through the town center, harassing merchants and demanding immediate payment of protection fees. But their usual swagger seemed forced, masking growing uncertainty as they encountered subtle resistance, shops closing simultaneously, residents recording their actions, small acts of coordinated defiance that hadn't existed days before. El Serpiente himself appeared at the mission during afternoon prayer service, ostensibly to remind Sister Angela of Friday's deadline. His attempt at intimidation was met with an unexpected sight, the chapel filled with community members, their presence a silent statement of solidarity. "Quite a congregation, sister," he observed, his casual tone masking obvious frustration. "Lot of people seeking salvation these days." "People seek many things, Senor Ortiz," Sister Angela replied, calmly, continuing to lead her prayer group. "Peace, justice, unity, salvation comes in many forms. Unity can be dangerous." El Serpiente's voice carried clear threat, especially when people unite around the wrong causes. "The only wrong cause is allowing fear to divide us." Sister Angela met his gaze directly. "Something you might remember from your own time in the military. El Serpiente's slight flinch confirmed another piece of intelligence. These men weren't just criminals, but trained operators using Los Diablos as cover. The question was, for what purpose? As evening approached, Sister Angela's network reported increased radio traffic and vehicle movements around Los Diablos' positions. "They're expecting something," Isabella's grandson reported. "Heavy weapons being distributed, guard rotations doubled. They're fortifying key positions around town." Sister Angela recognized the pattern from her guerrilla warfare days. "They're preparing for inspection," she concluded. "Someone important is coming. Probably whoever's really running this operation." The border incident was clearing the way. Night brought confirmation of her assessment. Multiple SUVs with diplomatic plates were observed entering Los Diablos territory, accompanied by professional security details. The visitors' movements suggested military or intelligence background, unprecise, coordinated, security conscious. "This goes beyond cartel business," Sister Angela explained to her core group of community leaders, gathered secretly in the mission's ancient wine cellar. "Los Diablos are proxies, their criminal activities providing cover for something more sophisticated. Friday's deadline isn't just about money, it's about ensuring complete control of this territory before the next phase begins." As midnight approached, Sister Angela made her final intelligence assessment of the day. The situation was escalating faster than expected, but so was the community's response. Los Diablos' increasing pressure had an unintended effect. Instead of crushing resistance, it was catalyzing unity. "They're making the same mistake I've seen before," she told Father Gabriel. "They think fear is their strongest weapon, but fear has a fundamental weakness. It loses power when people stand together. Every act of intimidation now just strengthens our community's resolve." The night's silence was broken by distant gunfire, Los Diablos conducting exercises to remind the town of their power. But Sister Angela heard something else in those shots: desperation. Because while they could threaten individuals, they were losing their grip on the community's soul. And in the end, she knew from bitter experience, no amount of weapons can defeat a united people who've decided to be free. Tomorrow would bring new challenges as the countdown to Friday's deadline continued. But as Sister Angela knelt in final prayer, she felt not fear but determination, because while Los Diablos were preparing for war, she was preparing something far more powerful, a community awakening to its own strength, rediscovering the unbreakable power of unity in the face of tyranny. As dawn approached Santa Rosa Mission, Sister Angela reviewed intelligence from her overnight network. Los Diablos' increased activity had revealed critical vulnerabilities. Their heightened security measures exposed patrol patterns, communication protocols, and command structure. More importantly, their escalating pressure had accelerated the community's transformation from isolated victims into coordinated observers. Sister Carmen arrived with the first report of the day. 3 more diplomatic vehicles entered town before sunrise, different plates than yesterday's visitors. The men inside, Isabella's grandson, says they carry themselves like special forces, but they're trying to hide it. Sister Angela processed this information with the tactical awareness honed by years of guerrilla warfare. They're compartmentalizing operations. Different teams, different objectives, minimal contact between units. Classic special operations protocol. The morning bread distribution brought more intelligence. Los Diablos had established new checkpoints overnight, restricting movement between neighborhoods. But the community's response demonstrated growing sophistication. Informal networks sharing information, coordinated schedules minimizing exposure, subtle signals warning of bandit presence. They're watching the mission constantly now, Eduardo, Torres reported while collecting supplies. 4 surveillance positions, rotating teams, but they're getting sloppy. Their observers are too focused on obvious threats. They don't notice our people watching them back. Sister Angela recognized the pattern from her resistance days. They're looking for traditional opposition, weapons, organized resistance, direct confrontation. They don't understand that our strength isn't in fighting, but in unity. By mid-morning, El Coyote himself made an appearance at the mission, accompanied by heavily armed guards. His attempt at intimidation was met with an unexpected sight. Dozens of community members engaged in normal activities, their presence a silent statement of defiance. "Busy morning, sister," El Coyote observed, his casual tone masking obvious tension. "Your congregation seems to be growing, almost like people are finding inspiration here." "Faith has a way of spreading, Senor Herrera," Sister Angela replied, continuing to direct volunteers organizing food donations, especially when people need it most. "Faith can be dangerous." El Coyote moved closer, lowering his voice, "especially when it makes people forget their place. Tomorrow's deadline isn't negotiable. Make sure your flock understands that." Sister Angela met his gaze with the steady confidence that had once stared down military juntas. "My flock understands more than you think, Senor. They understand that true strength isn't in causing fear, but in overcoming it." The encounter's impact rippled through the community. By afternoon, Sister Angela's network reported increased cooperation between neighborhoods, small businesses coordinating schedules, residents sharing resources, informal communication systems developing organically. "Something's changed, Father," Gabriel observed, watching children play in the mission courtyard while adults maintained subtle surveillance of surrounding streets. "The people, they're not just resisting, they're organizing. They're remembering who they are," Sister Angela corrected, recognizing patterns she'd seen in countless villages during the revolution. "Communities have natural strength. Our role isn't to create it, but to help them rediscover it." The afternoon brought more evidence of Los Diablos' growing frustration. Their patrols became increasingly aggressive, but met unexpected challenges. Streets emptying before their arrival, businesses closing in coordinated patterns, residents documenting their actions with phones and notebooks. "They're losing control," Isabella reported during evening prayers. "My grandson overheard their commanders arguing. The visitors from the border aren't happy. Something's behind schedule, but they can't force compliance without revealing their true operation." Sister Angela's tactical assessment confirmed this observation. Los Diablos' attempt to maintain their criminal facade while supporting sophisticated military operations was creating operational friction. Their professional operators struggled to coordinate with local criminals, leading to mistakes, confusion, and visible signs of internal conflict. As night fell, the mission's ancient bell tower provided perfect observation of Los Diablos' increased activity. More equipment arrived, advanced communications gear, surveillance systems, tactical vehicles, poorly disguised as civilian transport. "They're preparing for something significant," Sister Angela explained to her core group of community leaders, gathered secretly in the mission's underground chambers. Friday's deadline isn't just about protection money. They need total control of this territory before their next phase begins. The night's darkness brought new challenges, but also revealed hidden strengths. Los Diablos' attempt to enforce a curfew met passive resistance, lights appearing in windows, quiet movements between houses, informal networks sharing information and resources. "We're not just surviving now," Sister Carmen observed, helping. "Coordinate emergency food distribution through back alleys and ancient tunnel systems. We're adapting, evolving. Every restriction they impose makes our community stronger." Sister Angela recognized the transformation from her guerrilla warfare. experience. The same tactics that had once united villages against military oppression were now emerging naturally. People learning to communicate silently, to coordinate without obvious organization, to resist without direct confrontation. As midnight approached, Sister Angela made her final tactical assessment. Los Diablos' increasing pressure was having an unintended effect. Instead of crushing resistance, it was catalyzing unity. Their attempts to isolate and control were actually connecting and strengthening the community. Tomorrow would bring new challenges as Friday's deadline drew closer, but as Sister Angela knelt in final prayer, she felt not fear, but certainty. Because while Los Diablos were escalating their physical control, they were losing something far more important: their psychological dominance over a community that had discovered its collective strength. The battle for Santa Rosa was entering a critical phase, but Sister Angela knew from hard experience that once people overcome their fear, once they realize their unity is stronger than any weapon, no force can truly defeat them. Los Diablos might control the streets, but they were losing the only territory that ultimately mattered: the hearts and minds of a community that had chosen to be free. Thursday morning at Santa Rosa Mission revealed disturbing developments that transformed Sister Angela's assessment of the situation. Her intelligence network reported unprecedented activity, sophisticated communications equipment being installed across Los Diablos territory, heavily armed personnel establishing defensive positions, and most significantly, the arrival of what appeared to be specialized military hardware disguised as agricultural machinery. Sister Maria delivered the first critical intelligence during morning prayers. The warehouse on Calle Victoria, they've converted it into some kind of operations center. Military-grade encryption devices, satellite communications, advanced surveillance systems. This goes far beyond normal cartel operations. Sister Angela processed this information with the analytical precision that had once made her one of Latin America's most effective resistance commanders. They're establishing a forward operating base, she concluded. The criminal activities, the intimidation, it's all cover for something larger. Further confirmation arrived through Eduardo Torres, who had observed unusual modifications to Los Diablos vehicles. They're not just adding hidden compartments anymore, he reported, while ostensibly discussing church donations. They're installing mounting points for heavy weapons, reinforcing frames to military specifications. These aren't smugglers' modifications. This is preparation for combat operations. Sister Angela's tactical assessment took on new urgency. The pattern matched operations she'd encountered during the revolution, criminal organizations being used as cover for specialized military activities. But the scale and sophistication suggested state-level involvement. By midday, Isabella's grandson provided critical intelligence from inside Los Diablos' mechanical operations. They're talking about a major operation scheduled for next week, something about clearing the corridor and establishing the pipeline. But it's not drugs they're planning to move. They keep referring to packages and special cargo with military designation codes. The afternoon brought more revelations as Sister Angela's network identified key personnel among the recent arrivals. These aren't just mercenaries, she explained to Father Gabriel in the privacy of the confessional. Their operational security, their command structure. These are trained special operations units using Los Diablos as cover. The question is, who are they really working for? El Tigre's unexpected visit to the mission provided inadvertent confirmation. His attempt at intimidation revealed military training he couldn't fully conceal: precise movements, tactical awareness, professional threat assessment. More importantly, his conversation with subordinates carried terminology that caught Sister Angela's attention. They mentioned Phase 2 activation and corridor security protocols, she later explained to her core group of community leaders. These are military operation terms, not criminal jargon. Los Diablos aren't just trying to control our community. They're preparing our territory for something much more significant. As evening approached, Sister Carmen returned from her rounds with disturbing observations. They're mapping the old tunnel systems beneath the town, she reported. Professional survey teams disguised as utility workers. They're particularly interested in the routes that connect to the military installation across the border. Sister Angela's experience in guerrilla warfare provided crucial context. They're not just creating a smuggling route, she realized. They're establishing a covert transportation network. The criminal activity, the intimidation, it's all meant to secure operational territory without drawing official attention. The night brought increased activity around Los Diablos' primary compound. Sister Angela's observers reported new security measures, advanced electronic countermeasures, and most significantly, the arrival of specialized transport vehicles with diplomatic plates. Tomorrow's deadline isn't just about money or control, she explained during an emergency meeting in the mission's ancient wine cellar. They need to ensure complete dominance of this territory before their real operation begins. The protection, racket, the intimidation, it's all theater, meant to establish deniable control of a crucial tactical area. Los Diablos' true nature was becoming clear. They weren't simply criminals exploiting a border community. They were a sophisticated military operation hiding behind a criminal facade. Their attempt to control Santa Rosa wasn't about profit. It was about securing a strategic location for something far more dangerous. As midnight approached, Sister Angela completed her tactical assessment. The situation had evolved beyond simple community resistance. They weren't just facing bandits. They were facing a professional military operation with significant resources and unknown objectives. We need to understand their true purpose, she told Father Gabriel during final prayers. Not just to protect our community, but because whatever they're planning extends far beyond Santa Rosa. They've chosen our town for a reason. Its location, its infrastructure, its vulnerability. But they've made one critical mistake. What is that? Father Gabriel asked. They assumed fear would keep us isolated, prevent us from seeing the bigger picture, Sister Angela replied, remembering lessons learned in countless battles. Instead, their pressure has united us, made us more observant, more coordinated. They're running a sophisticated military operation, but they're about to learn what I discovered in Nicaragua. No amount of tactical superiority can overcome a community that refuses to be conquered. Tomorrow's deadline loomed, but Sister Angela's focus had shifted beyond the immediate confrontation. Los Diablos' true nature presented both greater danger and greater opportunity. Because while they were skilled at covert military operations, they had no defense against their greatest vulnerability, a united community that had overcome its fear and was now watching their every move. The battle for Santa Rosa had evolved into something far more significant than a simple struggle between bandits and townspeople. It had become a sophisticated chess match between professional military operators and a resistance network led by someone who understood their tactics all too well. The question was no longer about protecting a single community. It was about exposing and disrupting whatever hidden agenda had brought these forces to their quiet border town. Friday morning arrived at Santa Rosa Mission with an atmosphere of contained tension. Sister Angela began her day with tactical assessment, reviewing intelligence gathered through the night. Los Diablos had established additional security positions around their primary compound, while their professional operators conducted systematic sweeps of the surrounding area. They're implementing full-spectrum security protocols, Sister Angela observed, recognizing patterns from her military experience. Not just physical surveillance, but electronic countermeasures, signal monitoring, and counterintelligence operations. This level of preparation suggests today's deadline holds significance beyond simple extortion. The morning's first intelligence arrived through Sister Carmen, who had noticed sophisticated equipment being installed on nearby rooftops. "They're creating a surveillance network," she reported during breakfast preparation. "Thermal imaging, systems, signal interceptors, motion detectors, all carefully concealed behind ordinary fixtures." Sister Angela processed this information while coordinating the morning bread distribution, which had become an essential cover for intelligence gathering. "They're establishing a security corridor," she explained to Father Gabriel. "These aren't just random security measures. They're preparing the area for some form of high-value transport operation." By mid-morning, Eduardo Torres provided crucial information about Los Diablos' vehicular movements. "They're positioning transport vehicles at strategic points throughout the town," he reported while collecting supplies. "Modified trucks with reinforced suspensions and advanced electronics. Whatever they're planning to move, it requires significant security and specialized handling." The situation escalated when El Coyote arrived at the mission, accompanied by a new figure, a man whose bearing and tactical awareness marked him as special operations. Though dressed in civilian clothes, his professional demeanor contrasted sharply with Los Diablos' usual theatrical intimidation. "Time's up, sister," El Coyote announced, but it was clear he was performing for his professional companion. "Have you reconsidered our generous offer of protection?" Sister Angela met their gaze with the calm confidence that had once faced down military hunters. "Our position remains unchanged, Senor Herrera. This mission serves the community. We won't participate in its exploitation." The Special Operations Officer studied her with professional interest, clearly noting details that others might miss. Sister Angela maintained her role as a simple nun, but decades of combat experience had taught her to recognize when she was being tactically assessed. "Courage is admirable," the officer commented in accented Spanish, "but sometimes wisdom requires accepting inevitable changes. Your community's cooperation would be advantageous for all parties." "The only inevitable change," Sister Angela replied, drawing on years of diplomatic encounters during the revolution, "is that truth eventually emerges, no matter how carefully hidden." The subtle shift in the officer's expression confirmed her suspicions. Los Diablos' operation involved classified activities that required absolute secrecy. Their deadline wasn't about money. It was about ensuring complete operational security for whatever they planned to transport through Santa Rosa. As the visitors departed, Sister Angela's network reported increased activity around Los Diablos compound. "They're implementing additional security measures," Isabella's grandson reported. "New communications equipment, advanced weapons being distributed, professional operators taking direct control of key positions." The afternoon brought more evidence of escalating preparations. Los Diablos' local members were being supplemented by professional security teams, their military training evident in their movements and protocols. Sister Angela recognized the pattern from her guerrilla warfare days, specialized units establishing a secure corridor for sensitive operations. "They're not just securing the town," she explained to her core group of community leaders gathered secretly in the mission's underground chambers. "They're creating a controlled environment for some form of classified transport, the criminal activities, the intimidation. It's all meant to establish deniable control of a crucial tactical area." As evening approached, Sister Angela completed her final tactical assessment. Los Diablos' operation had revealed itself as something far more sophisticated than simple criminal enterprise. Their professional operators, advanced equipment, and Classified protocols suggested state-level involvement in whatever they planned to move through Santa Rosa. "Tomorrow will bring their response to our refusal," she told Father Gabriel during evening prayers. But they face a dilemma. Their operation requires secrecy, yet any significant action against the mission risks drawing unwanted attention. They must maintain their criminal facade while executing a classified military operation, a balance that creates exploitable vulnerabilities. The night brought increased surveillance of the mission, but Sister Angela's network had already established counter-surveillance protocols. The community's coordination had evolved beyond simple observation into sophisticated resistance, though not in ways Los Diablos' professional operators could easily detect or counter. "They're expecting conventional opposition," Sister Angela explained during a final strategy session. "Protests, violence, obvious resistance. They're not prepared for a community that has learned to work together in ways that appear completely ordinary. Their tactical superiority means nothing against an enemy they can't identify or engage." As midnight approached, Sister Angela made her final preparations. Tomorrow would bring Los Diablos' response to their refusal, but she had faced similar situations during the revolution. The key wasn't matching their force or resources. It was understanding and exploiting their operational constraints. The battle for Santa Rosa had evolved into a sophisticated conflict between professional military operators and a resistance network led by someone who understood their tactics all too well. Los Diablos might control the streets with their weapons and technology, but Sister Angela controlled something far more powerful, a united community that had learned to resist in ways no amount of tactical superiority could counter. Saturday morning revealed disturbing developments that transformed Sister Angela's understanding of Los Diablos' true operation. Her intelligence network reported unusual activity beneath the town, heavy equipment being moved through the old tunnel systems, sophisticated electronic installations, and most significantly, the arrival of what appeared to be specialized containment units. Sister Carmen delivered the first critical intelligence during morning preparations. The old mining tunnels near Calle Dorada, they've converted them into some kind of facility. Security checkpoints, reinforced doors, environmental control. Systems, whatever they're planning to move through Santa Rosa, requires specialized containment. Sister Angela processed this information with the tactical precision honed by years of guerrilla warfare. The pattern matched classified operations she'd encountered during the revolution, hidden facilities disguised as criminal enterprises, used for handling sensitive materials or conducting covert research. Eduardo Torres provided crucial confirmation. Through his hardware store's supply records, they've been purchasing industrial-grade air filtration systems, specialized electrical components, and materials for biological containment. These aren't for drug operations. This is advanced research infrastructure. The morning's observations revealed increased security around key tunnel access points. Los Diablos' professional operators had established sophisticated security. Protocols, biometric access controls, electromagnetic surveillance, and what appeared to be radiation monitoring equipment. "This isn't just a transport operation," Sister Angela explained to Father Gabriel in the privacy of the confessional. "They're establishing some form of classified research facility beneath our town. The criminal activities, the intimidation, it's all meant to prevent anyone from looking too closely at what's happening underground." By midday, Isabella's grandson provided critical intelligence from his position in Los Diablos mechanical operations. They're installing specialized ventilation systems, power distribution networks, and what looks like medical equipment. The professional operators, they're not just security. Some of them wear laboratory clothing beneath their tactical gear. Sister Angela's resistance experience provided crucial context. During the revolution, she'd uncovered similar facilities, Classified research operations hidden behind criminal enterprises, using local instability as cover for unauthorized experiments. The afternoon brought unexpected confirmation when El Serpiente visited the mission, accompanied by individuals whose bearing and equipment marked them as research personnel rather than security operators. Their attempt at maintaining the criminal facade was betrayed by technical discussions Sister Angela overheard, references to containment protocols, specimen viability, and environmental parameters. This goes beyond military operations, she later explained to her core group of community leaders. They're not just using Santa Rosa for transport, they're establishing a covert research facility. The question is, what kind of research requires this level of security and deniability? As evening approached, Sister Carmen returned from her rounds with disturbing observations. They're modifying the deeper tunnel systems, she reported, installing isolation chambers, decontamination units, and what appears to be medical research. Equipment, local hospital supplies are being diverted underground. The pattern became clear through Sister Angela's tactical assessment. Los Diablos wasn't simply a criminal organization providing cover for military operations. They were part of a sophisticated network establishing classified research facilities in vulnerable border communities. The timeline is accelerating, she explained during an emergency meeting in the mission's underground chambers. Their response to our refusal wasn't just about maintaining control. They're concerned about exposure. Whatever research they're conducting, it requires absolute secrecy. Night brought increased activity around the tunnel access points. Sister Angela's network reported the arrival of specialized transport vehicles, mobile laboratories disguised as maintenance trucks, containment units masked as commercial refrigeration equipment. They've chosen Santa Rosa for specific reasons, she told Father Gabriel during final prayers. Our location, our isolation, our vulnerable population, perfect conditions for conducting research that can't bear official scrutiny, but they've made a critical miscalculation. What's that? Father Gabriel asked. They assumed fear would keep people from asking questions, from noticing details, Sister Angela replied, drawing on decades of resistance experience. Instead, their pressure has made the community more observant, more connected. Every attempt at concealment has only revealed more about their true operation. As midnight approached, Sister Angela completed her tactical assessment. The situation had evolved beyond simple community resistance into something far more significant. They weren't just facing criminal intimidation or military occupation. They were confronting a classified research operation that posed unknown risks to the entire community. The battle for Santa Rosa had transformed into a sophisticated conflict between covert operators and a resistance network led by someone who understood the true stakes. Los Diablos might control the underground facility with their security systems and professional personnel, but Sister Angela controlled something more powerful, a united community determined to expose whatever darkness was being hidden beneath their streets. Tomorrow would bring new challenges as the research operation continued to develop. But Sister Angela had faced similar situations during the revolution. The key wasn't matching their resources or technology. It was understanding and documenting their activities until the truth became impossible to contain. The question was no longer about protecting the community from criminal intimidation. It was about exposing and disrupting a classified research operation that had chosen their quiet. Border Town is the perfect cover for experiments that couldn't bear the light of day. Sunday morning at Santa Rosa Mission marked a critical shift in Sister Angela's strategy. With confirmation of the underground research facility, her resistance network transitioned from passive observation to active documentation. The community's Coordinated efforts now focused on gathering evidence of Los Diablos classified operations, while maintaining their appearance of ordinary daily activities. Sister Carmen initiated the day's intelligence gathering during the pre-dawn prayer service. The facility's power consumption has increased significantly, she reported, referencing data collected from the town's electrical grid monitors. They're drawing enough energy to support sophisticated research equipment, environmental control systems, and advanced security measures. Sister Angela analyzed this information through the lens of her extensive resistance experience. The power signatures match patterns I observed during the revolution, classified research facilities attempting to conceal their operations behind legitimate infrastructure. We need comprehensive documentation of their energy consumption, supply, shipments, and personnel movements. Eduardo Torres provided crucial technical intelligence through his hardware store's distribution network. They're installing specialized containment systems, he reported during morning supplies collection. Biological safety equipment, chemical storage units, and what appears to be radiation shielding. The components suggest research involving hazardous materials. The morning's surveillance revealed increased activity around the facility's access points. Los Diablos' professional operators had established sophisticated security protocols, but their very precision provided valuable intelligence about the facility's true nature. Their security measures tell us about their priorities, Sister Angela explained to her core group of community leaders. The emphasis on environmental containment, the biological safety protocols, the radiation monitoring. They're conducting research that poses significant risks. This isn't just about protecting secrets, it's about preventing contamination. By midday, Isabella's grandson delivered critical information from within Los Diablos mechanical operations. They're installing specialized ventilation systems with multiple redundancies, he reported. The professional staff discusses containment protocols constantly, something about maintaining specimen integrity and preventing environmental exposure. Sister Angela's tactical assessment incorporated this new intelligence. The pattern matched classified facilities she'd encountered during her resistance days. Covert research operations, conducting experiments that required both absolute secrecy and rigorous containment protocols. The afternoon brought unexpected opportunities when El Tigre visited the mission, accompanied by individuals whose hazmat suits beneath their tactical gear betrayed their true purpose. Their attempt to maintain their criminal facade was compromised by technical discussions about research parameters and containment protocols. We're not just documenting criminal activities anymore, Sister Angela later explained during a secure meeting in the mission's underground chambers. We're gathering evidence of unauthorized research operations that pose potential risks to our entire community. Every detail matters: personnel movements, equipment installations, security protocols. We need to build a comprehensive record of their activities. As evening approached, Sister Carmen returned from her community rounds with disturbing observations. They're expanding the facility's medical capabilities, she reported. Advanced diagnostic equipment, surgical supplies, and what appears to be specialized containment units for biological specimens. Local medical resources are being systematically diverted underground. Sister Angela's resistance experience provided crucial context for interpreting these developments. The facility's rapid expansion and increasing security measures suggested accelerated research activities, possibly in response to their failed attempt to secure complete control of the community through intimidation. Their timeline has shifted, she explained during the evening strategy session. Our resistance to their criminal facade has forced them to accelerate their research operations. This creates opportunities. Rushed operations lead to mistakes. Oversights we can document and expose. night brought increased activity around the facility's access points. Sister Angela's network reported new equipment arrivals, specialized research apparatus disguised as industrial machinery, medical supplies concealed within ordinary deliveries, and what appeared to be containment units for biological specimens. "Documentation is our most powerful weapon," she instructed her resistance network. "Every delivery, every personnel movement, every security measure, record everything. We're not just protecting our community anymore, we're gathering evidence of operations that can't bear public scrutiny." As midnight approached, Sister Angela completed her tactical assessment. The resistance had evolved beyond simple community protection into a sophisticated intelligence-gathering operation. Their objective wasn't just to resist Los Diablos' criminal activities, but to expose whatever classified research was being conducted beneath their streets. The battle for Santa Rosa had transformed into a complex campaign of documentation and exposure. Los Diablos might control their underground facility with advanced security systems and professional personnel, but Sister Angela's network controlled something more powerful: the ability to observe, record, and eventually reveal the true nature of their operations. Tomorrow would bring new challenges as the research facility continued its accelerated operations. But Sister Angela had faced similar situations during her years leading resistance movements. The key wasn't confronting their security directly. It was methodically documenting their activities until the truth became impossible to contain or deny. The question was no longer about protecting the community from criminal intimidation. It was about exposing and disrupting a classified research operation that had chosen their vulnerable border town as the perfect cover for experiments that required both absolute secrecy and deniable accountability. Monday morning brought critical revelations that transformed Sister Angela's understanding of Los Diablos' operation. Her intelligence network uncovered evidence suggesting the underground research facility was part of a larger system spanning multiple border communities. The pattern indicated a sophisticated network of classified installations operating under the cover of criminal enterprises. Sister Carmen delivered the first crucial intelligence during early morning preparations. Supply manifests suggest coordination with similar facilities, she reported, referencing documentation obtained through the mission's aid network. The equipment specifications, security protocols, and containment requirements match patterns observed in 3 other border towns where criminal organizations have established sudden, sophisticated operations. Sister Angela analyzed this information through her extensive experience with covert military operations. "They're not building isolated research sites," she explained to Father Gabriel during a private consultation. "They're establishing a network of connected facilities, each hidden behind local criminal operations. Santa Rosa is one component of a larger system designed for classified research that requires both sophisticated infrastructure and complete deniability." Eduardo Torres provided vital confirmation through his regional business connections. Hardware suppliers across the border region report similar patterns, he detailed, while organizing mission supplies. Specialized equipment purchases, advanced security installations, and environmental control systems. The specifications are identical to what we've observed here, all being channeled through seemingly unrelated criminal enterprises. The morning surveillance revealed increased communication between Los Diablos professional operators and outside entities. Encrypted transmissions, coded vehicle movements, and coordinated security protocols suggested systematic interaction with other facilities. "Their operation is more extensive than we initially believed," Sister Angela briefed her core leadership group in the mission's secure basement. "The underground facility isn't just a local research site, it's part of an integrated network, Each criminal organization provides cover for a different aspect of their classified research program. By midday, Isabella's grandson delivered critical intelligence from within Los Diablos' mechanical operations. They're installing specialized communication systems linking to other locations, he reported. The professional staff discusses network protocols and integrated research parameters. Something about maintaining experimental continuity across multiple sites. Sister Angela's tactical assessment incorporated this expanded understanding. The pattern matched sophisticated operations she'd encountered during the revolution. Classified research programs disguising themselves behind seemingly unrelated criminal activities, using local instability to mask their true nature. The afternoon brought unexpected confirmation when El Serpiente visited the mission, accompanied by technical specialists whose conversations revealed connections to other facilities. Their attempts at maintaining operational security were compromised by discussions of synchronized research protocols and network integration requirements. We're documenting something far more significant than a single covert facility, Sister Angela explained during an emergency strategy session. They've created an entire shadow infrastructure for conducting classified research that can't bear official scrutiny. Each criminal organization provides local cover while their professional operators maintain the actual research network. As evening approached, Sister Carmen returned from her community outreach with disturbing observations. Other border towns report similar patterns, she detailed. Criminal organizations suddenly acquiring sophisticated equipment, establishing secure compounds, and implementing advanced security measures. Local resources being diverted to underground facilities with identical specifications to ours. The pattern became clear through Sister Angela's strategic analysis. Los Diablos wasn't simply providing cover for a local research facility. They were part of an organized network conducting coordinated experiments across multiple locations, each hidden behind the facade of criminal activity. Their operational structure explains their aggressive response to resistance, she explained during the night's planning session. Exposure of one facility risks compromising their entire network. They're not just protecting local secrets, they're preserving the integrity of a sophisticated research program operating outside official oversight. Night brought increased evidence of network coordination. Sister Angela's intelligence teams reported synchronized activity patterns between facilities, coordinated supply movements, and what appeared to be systematic data transfers between locations. Documentation must now extend beyond local operations, she instructed her resistance network. We need to establish connections between facilities, map their communication patterns, and understand their integrated research protocols. Every piece of evidence strengthens our ability to expose not just individual sites, but their entire shadow network. As midnight approached, Sister Angela completed her strategic assessment. The resistance had evolved beyond exposing a single covert facility into documenting a sophisticated network of classified research operations. Their objective wasn't just protecting Santa Rosa, but gathering evidence of a systematic program operating behind multiple criminal enterprises. The battle had transformed into a complex campaign of intelligence gathering and strategic documentation. Los Diablos might control their local facility, but Sister Angela's network was now positioned to expose something far more significant. A hidden research program that had established itself across multiple border communities, using organized crime as cover for classified experiments that required both sophisticated infrastructure and complete deniability. Tomorrow would bring new challenges as they worked to document and understand the full scope of the network. But Sister Angela had faced similar challenges during her years leading resistance movements. The key wasn't just exposing individual operations, it was methodically revealing the connections between them until the entire system became impossible to conceal. Tuesday's revelations fundamentally altered Sister Angela's understanding of the situation's scope. Her intelligence network uncovered evidence suggesting the research network wasn't merely a regional operation, but part of an international program with implications extending far beyond the border region. During morning prayers, Sister Carmen provided critical intelligence gathered through the mission's international aid connections. Similar facilities are being established in vulnerable communities across Latin America, she reported. The pattern is identical. Criminal organizations suddenly acquiring sophisticated infrastructure, implementing advanced security protocols, and establishing underground research facilities with matching specifications. Sister Angela analyzed this information through her extensive experience with international military operations. They've created a transnational research network, she explained during a secure briefing with Father Gabriel. Each facility operates behind local criminal enterprises, using regional instability to mask a coordinated international program. The implications extend far beyond our immediate situation. Eduardo Torres delivered crucial confirmation through his international supply chain contacts. Equipment orders matching our facility's specifications have been traced to locations in multiple countries, he detailed. The technical requirements, security systems, and containment protocols are standardized across all sites, suggesting centralized coordination. The morning's surveillance revealed increased international communication between Los Diablos' professional operators and external entities. Encrypted transmissions, diplomatic vehicle movements, and coordinated security protocols indicated systematic interaction with facilities across national borders. The operation transcends national boundaries, Sister Angela briefed her core leadership group. Each facility functions as part of an integrated international network, conducting coordinated research that requires both sophisticated infrastructure and complete deniability. The criminal organizations provide local cover while professional operators maintain the global program. By midday, Isabella's grandson provided critical intelligence from within Los Diablos mechanical operations. They're implementing standardized research protocols synchronized with international facilities, he reported. The professional staff discusses global experimental parameters and cross-border specimen transfer procedures. The operation extends far beyond our region. Sister Angela's tactical assessment incorporated this expanded understanding. The pattern matched classified international programs she'd encountered during the revolution. Sophisticated research, operations establishing themselves in vulnerable communities across multiple countries, using local criminal enterprises to maintain operational security. The afternoon brought unexpected confirmation when El Coyote visited the mission, accompanied by individuals whose credentials suggested diplomatic status. Their attempts at maintaining operational security were compromised by discussions of international research coordination and multi-site protocol implementation. We're documenting an operation with global implications, Sister Angela explained during an emergency strategy session. They've established an international network for conducting classified research that requires both sophisticated infrastructure and complete deniability. Each criminal organization provides local cover while their professional operators maintain the global research program. As evening approached, Sister Carmen returned from her international aid coordination with disturbing observations. Communities across Latin America report identical patterns, she detailed. Criminal organizations suddenly implementing advanced security measures, establishing underground facilities, and coordinating with professional operators. The specifications match our facility exactly. The international scope became clear. Through Sister Angela's strategic analysis, Los Diablos wasn't simply part of a regional research network. They were one component of a sophisticated international program conducting coordinated experiments across multiple countries, each facility hidden behind local criminal enterprises. Their global operational structure explains their extreme security measures, she explained during the night's planning session. Exposure of any facility risks compromising their entire international network. They're not just protecting local operations, they're preserving the integrity of a classified research program operating outside international oversight. A night brought increased evidence of global coordination. Sister Angela's intelligence teams reported synchronized activity patterns between international facilities, coordinated cross-border movements, and what appeared to be systematic data transfers between locations worldwide. Our documentation must now consider the international scope, she instructed her resistance network. We need to establish connections between facilities across borders, map their communication patterns, and understand their integrated global research protocols. Every piece of evidence strengthens our ability to expose not just individual sites, but their entire international network. As midnight approached, Sister Angela completed her strategic assessment. The resistance had evolved beyond exposing a regional network into documenting a sophisticated international research program. Their objective wasn't just protecting vulnerable communities, but gathering evidence of a systematic operation that had established itself across multiple countries. The battle had transformed into a complex campaign of international intelligence gathering and strategic documentation. Los Diablos might control their local facility, but Sister Angela's network was now positioned to expose something far more significant, a hidden global research program that had established itself in vulnerable communities worldwide, using organized crime as cover for classified experiments that required both sophisticated infrastructure and complete deniability. Tomorrow would bring new challenges as they worked to document and understand the full scope of the international network. But Sister Angela had faced similar challenges during her years leading resistance movements. The key wasn't just exposing individual operations, it was methodically revealing the connections between them until the entire global system became impossible to conceal. Wednesday brought revelations that exposed the true scope of the operations. Financial backing. Sister Angela's intelligence network uncovered evidence linking the international research program to major pharmaceutical corporations operating through sophisticated proxy organizations. During early morning preparations, Sister Carmen delivered critical intelligence gathered through analysis of supply chain documentation. The specialized equipment installations trace back to shell companies connected to global health innovations, one of the world's largest pharmaceutical conglomerates, she reported. Financial records show systematic funding channeled through multiple layers of corporate entities. Sister Angela analyzed this information through her experience with covert operations financing. They've created an elaborate corporate infrastructure, she explained during a secure briefing. The criminal organizations provide local cover, while pharmaceutical corporations fund the actual research through intermediary companies, maintaining plausible deniability for unauthorized experiments. Eduardo Torres provided crucial confirmation through his business connections. The technical specifications for facility equipment match proprietary designs from major pharmaceutical research divisions, he detailed. The containment systems, laboratory infrastructure, and research protocols align with corporate standards, though carefully obscured through intermediary suppliers. The morning's surveillance revealed increased corporate presence at the facility. Sister Angela's observers noted the arrival of executives disguised as business consultants, their corporate origins betrayed by technical discussions and operational protocols. The operation represents significant corporate investment, Sister Angela briefed her leadership team. These facilities aren't just conducting classified research. They're implementing experimental protocols that corporations can't pursue through official channels. The criminal enterprises provide cover for research that wouldn't survive ethical oversight. By midday, Isabella's grandson delivered critical intelligence from within the facility's operations. They're implementing research protocols developed by corporate laboratories, he reported. The professional staff discusses accelerated trial procedures and expedited testing protocols. Everything suggests unauthorized pharmaceutical research conducted without regulatory oversight. Sister Angela's strategic assessment incorporated this corporate dimension. The pattern matched sophisticated operations she'd encountered during the revolution. Corporate interests using local instability to conduct research that circumvented international regulations and ethical constraints. The afternoon brought unexpected confirmation when El Coyote escorted corporate representatives through the mission, their attempts at maintaining cover compromised by discussions of market applications and development timelines. We're documenting something beyond criminal enterprises or classified research, Sister Angela explained during an emergency strategy session. Major pharmaceutical corporations have established a shadow research network using criminal organizations as cover for experimental protocols that couldn't survive public scrutiny or regulatory review. As evening approached, Sister Carmen returned from coordinating with international contacts with disturbing observations. Similar facilities worldwide show identical corporate connections, she detailed. The same pharmaceutical companies appear repeatedly, operating through layers of shell corporations and proxy organizations. The pattern suggests systematic corporate involvement in unauthorized research. The corporate structure became clear through Sister Angela's analysis. The international network wasn't simply conducting classified research, it was implementing experimental protocols developed by pharmaceutical corporations, using criminal enterprises to shield corporate interests from liability or oversight. Their corporate backing explains their sophisticated infrastructure, she explained during the night's planning session. These aren't just research facilities. They're unauthorized corporate laboratories operating outside regulatory frameworks. The criminal organizations provide cover, while pharmaceutical companies pursue experimental research that wouldn't be permitted in official facilities. Night brought increased evidence of corporate coordination. Sister Angela's intelligence teams reported systematic communication between facilities and corporate headquarters, coordinated data transfers, and what appeared to be regular progress reports to pharmaceutical executives. Documentation must now focus on corporate connections, she instructed her resistance network. We need to establish clear links between these facilities and their pharmaceutical backers, map their funding channels, and understand their corporate objectives. Every piece of evidence strengthens our ability to expose not just the research network, but the corporate interests driving it. As midnight approached, Sister Angela completed her strategic assessment. The resistance had evolved beyond exposing an international research network into documenting a sophisticated corporate operation. Their objective wasn't just protecting vulnerable communities, but gathering evidence of systematic corporate exploitation of local instability to conduct unauthorized research. The battle had transformed into a complex campaign of corporate accountability. Los Diablos might control their local facility, but Sister Angela's network was now positioned to expose something far more significant: a hidden corporate research program that had established itself in vulnerable communities worldwide, using criminal enterprises as cover for experimental protocols that required both sophisticated infrastructure and complete deniability. Tomorrow would bring new challenges as they worked to document and understand the full scope of corporate involvement. But Sister Angela had faced similar challenges during her years leading resistance movements. The key wasn't just exposing individual facilities. It was methodically revealing the corporate connections behind them until the entire system became impossible to conceal or deny. Thursday marked a critical phase in Sister Angela's campaign as her network focused on systematically documenting corporate involvement in the unauthorized research network. The priority shifted to gathering verifiable evidence that could withstand legal and public scrutiny. Sister Carmen initiated the day's documentation efforts with a comprehensive analysis of financial transfers. "We've identified systematic fund movement from major pharmaceutical corporations through multiple shell companies," she reported during morning preparations. Each transaction layer obscures the corporate source, but establishes clear patterns of multinational pharmaceutical funding directed to facility operations. Sister Angela applied her tactical experience to organizing the evidence collection. "Financial documentation provides crucial verification," she explained during a secure briefing with key team members. "Every transaction creates records that connect these facilities to their corporate sponsors. We need to establish clear chains of evidence that demonstrate systematic corporate involvement in unauthorized research." Eduardo Torres contributed critical supply chain documentation through his business records. Equipment purchases traced directly to pharmaceutical corporation subsidiaries, he detailed, while reviewing invoices. The technical specifications match proprietary corporate designs, while delivery patterns establish regular movement of specialized research materials to multiple facilities. The morning's surveillance operations focused on documenting corporate presence at the facility. Sister Angela's observers recorded detailed logs of executive visits, including photographic evidence of corporate representatives entering secured areas and participating in research oversight. "Proper documentation requires multiple verification sources," Sister Angela instructed her network. "Each piece of evidence must be independently corroborated through separate channels. We're not just collecting information, we're building a comprehensive case that can expose systematic corporate exploitation of vulnerable communities." By midday, Isabella's grandson provided crucial internal documentation from the facility's operations. "I've secured copies of research protocols bearing corporate letterheads," he reported. "Internal communications reference direct oversight from pharmaceutical executives and implementation of corporate experimental procedures." Sister Angela's strategic assessment emphasized the importance of systematic evidence collection. The documentation needed to demonstrate not just individual corporate connections, but patterns of coordinated pharmaceutical company involvement across multiple facilities. The afternoon brought an unexpected opportunity when El Serpiente escorted corporate compliance officers through the facility. Sister Angela's network captured detailed records of their inspection procedures and documentation requirements, revealing direct corporate monitoring of research protocols. "Evidence collection must focus on establishing systematic patterns," she explained during an afternoon strategy session. "Individual documents prove specific connections, but demonstrating coordinated corporate involvement requires comprehensive documentation of repeated patterns across multiple facilities and time periods." As evening approached, Sister Carmen returned from coordinating with international contacts bearing additional evidence. "We've compiled parallel documentation from facilities in other countries," she reported. The records show identical corporate protocols, matching funding patterns, and coordinated oversight procedures implemented across all locations. The evidence collection strategy crystallized through Sister Angela's analysis. The objective wasn't just gathering individual documents, but assembling comprehensive documentation that demonstrated systematic corporate establishment of unauthorized research facilities in vulnerable communities worldwide. Effective documentation requires strategic organization, she explained during the night's planning session. We need to establish clear timelines, verify corporate connections through multiple sources, and demonstrate coordinated patterns of pharmaceutical company involvement in unauthorized experimental research. Night brought increased opportunities for evidence collection as corporate representatives conducted facility inspections. Sister Angela's teams documented systematic communication patterns between corporate headquarters and research facilities, including encrypted data transfers and progress reports. Documentation must withstand intense scrutiny, she instructed. Her network. Every piece of evidence requires verification through independent channels. We're building a case that will face sophisticated corporate legal challenges. Our documentation must be comprehensive, systematic, and irrefutable. As midnight approached, Sister Angela completed her evidence assessment. The resistance had evolved into a sophisticated documentation operation focused on exposing systematic corporate exploitation. Their objective wasn't just collecting individual pieces of evidence, but assembling comprehensive documentation that could withstand legal challenges and public scrutiny. The battle had transformed into a complex campaign of corporate accountability through systematic evidence gathering. Los Diablos might control local facility operations, but Sister Angela's network was now positioned to document something far more significant. Clear patterns of pharmaceutical corporations establishing unauthorized research facilities in vulnerable communities worldwide. Tomorrow would bring new challenges as they work to strengthen and verify their growing body of evidence. But Sister Angela had faced similar challenges during her years leading resistance movements. The key wasn't just collecting individual documents, it was methodically assembling comprehensive evidence that could expose systematic corporate exploitation in ways that couldn't be denied or concealed. Friday brought escalating tension as corporate security forces responded to Sister Angela's evidence-gathering operation. The pharmaceutical companies, realizing the extent of documentation being assembled, implemented aggressive countermeasures to protect their unauthorized research network. During early morning prayers, Sister Carmen delivered urgent intelligence about increased security deployments. Corporate response teams have arrived at multiple facilities, she reported, while organizing the day's activities. Professional security operators with advanced equipment and tactical training. They're implementing sophisticated counter-surveillance measures and intensifying efforts to identify our intelligence network. Sister Angela assessed this development through her extensive experience with corporate security operations. Their response confirms the significance of our documentation, she explained during an emergency briefing. These aren't ordinary security contractors. They're specialized corporate assets deployed to protect sensitive operations. Their presence demonstrates how seriously the pharmaceutical companies view the threat of exposure. Eduardo Torres provided critical information about the security buildup through his business connections. They're establishing a sophisticated surveillance network throughout the town, he detailed while reviewing security equipment deliveries. Advanced monitoring systems, signal interceptors, and professional counterintelligence teams. The corporate security presence exceeds anything Los Diablos previously deployed. The morning's observations revealed systematic security sweeps, targeting potential intelligence-gathering positions. Sister Angela's network documented corporate security teams conducting detailed searches of buildings, overlooking facility access points, implementing electronic countermeasures, and establishing new security protocols. Their response requires tactical adaptation, Sister Angela instructed her leadership team. Corporate security operates with different priorities and capabilities than criminal organizations. They're trained to protect sensitive information and prevent documentation of unauthorized activities. We must adjust our evidence-gathering methods accordingly. By midday, Isabella's grandson delivered crucial intelligence from within facility operations. Corporate security is implementing new containment protocols, he reported. They're systematically searching for information leaks, monitoring all communications, and increasing compartmentalization of research operations. The professional security teams are specifically tasked with preventing documentation of corporate involvement. Sister Angela's strategic assessment incorporated this enhanced security presence. The pattern matched sophisticated corporate protection operations she'd encountered during previous resistance campaigns. Professional security teams deployed to protect sensitive corporate activities from exposure and documentation. The afternoon brought direct confrontation when corporate security teams conducted aggressive searches of properties near the mission, their attempts at maintaining operational security compromised by their professional tactical procedures and advanced equipment. We're facing a coordinated corporate security operation, Sister Angela explained during an emergency strategy session. These teams are specifically trained to protect sensitive corporate activities and prevent documentation of unauthorized operations. Their presence confirms the significance of our evidence-gathering efforts. As evening approached, Sister Carmen returned from community coordination with disturbing observations. Corporate security teams are pressuring local residents for information, she reported. They're combining sophisticated surveillance with aggressive interrogation tactics. The professional operators are systematically working to identify and neutralize our intelligence network. The security situation crystallized through Sister Angela's analysis. The corporate response wasn't simply about protecting individual facilities, it represented a coordinated effort to prevent documentation of systematic pharmaceutical company involvement in unauthorized research operations. Their security response reveals corporate vulnerability, she explained during the night's planning session. These pharmaceutical companies are committing significant resources to prevent exposure of their involvement. The scale of their security operation demonstrates the potential impact of our documentation efforts. Night brought increased security pressure as corporate teams implemented sophisticated surveillance coverage. Sister Angela's network observed systematic deployment of advanced monitoring systems, professional security patrols, and coordinated counterintelligence operations. Adaptation is essential, she instructed her resistance network. Corporate security operates with different capabilities and priorities than criminal organizations. We must adjust our evidence-gathering methods while maintaining comprehensive documentation of their security response. Their efforts to prevent exposure provide additional evidence of systematic corporate involvement. As midnight approached, Sister Angela completed her tactical assessment. The resistance had evolved into a sophisticated counter-corporate operation focused on maintaining evidence-gathering capabilities despite professional security pressure. Their objective wasn't just continuing documentation, but demonstrating how corporate security responses confirmed systematic pharmaceutical company involvement in unauthorized research. The battle had transformed into a complex campaign of corporate accountability against professional security operations. Corporate teams might control local security, but Sister Angela's network was now positioned to document something far more significant: clear evidence of pharmaceutical companies deploying sophisticated security assets to protect unauthorized research facilities in vulnerable communities worldwide. Tomorrow would bring new challenges as they work to maintain their documentation efforts against increasing security pressure. But Sister Angela had faced similar challenges during her years leading resistance movements. The key wasn't just evading corporate security. It was methodically documenting their protection operations as additional evidence of systematic pharmaceutical company involvement in ways that couldn't be denied or concealed. Saturday marked a critical turning point as internal fractures began emerging within the corporate criminal alliance. Sister Angela's systematic documentation efforts created increasing pressure that exposed fundamental weaknesses in their organizational structure. Sister Carmen delivered the first signs of internal conflict during morning preparations. Tensions are escalating between Los Diablos and corporate security teams, she reported while coordinating daily activities. The criminal organization resents professional operators assuming control of their territory, while corporate teams view local criminals as security liabilities. Their operational unity is deteriorating under pressure. Sister Angela analyzed these developments through her extensive experience with coalition dynamics. Internal conflict presents strategic opportunities, she explained during a secure briefing. The alliance between criminal organizations and pharmaceutical corporations was always inherently unstable. As pressure increases, their divergent priorities and operational methods create natural friction points we can document and exploit. Eduardo Torres provided critical intelligence about growing organizational discord through his business observations. Los Diablos members are increasingly resistant to corporate security protocols, he detailed while reviewing recent interactions. The professional operator's emphasis on information security conflicts with criminal organizations, traditional methods of maintaining control through visible intimidation. The morning surveillance revealed multiple instances of operational dysfunction as criminal elements and corporate security teams struggled to coordinate their activities. Sister Angela's network documented systematic breakdowns in communication, conflicting security procedures, and growing hostility between local criminals and professional operators. Their organizational structure is revealing inherent weaknesses. Sister Angela explained to her leadership team, criminal organizations operate through visible power projection, while corporate security relies on subtle control methods. These contradictory approaches become increasingly incompatible under sustained pressure. By midday, Isabella's grandson delivered crucial intelligence from within facility operations. Corporate security is systematically excluding Los Diablos, members from sensitive areas, he reported. The professional teams no longer trust local criminals with access to research operations. This isolation is creating significant resentment among gang leadership. Sister Angela's strategic assessment recognized classic patterns of coalition breakdown she had exploited during previous resistance campaigns. The corporate criminal alliance was fragmenting under the combined pressure of documentation efforts and operational contradictions. The afternoon brought visible evidence of deteriorating cooperation when El Coyote confronted corporate security teams over their unilateral implementation of new access protocols. Sister Angela's observers documented increasing instances of open conflict between criminal organizations and professional operators. The alliance is facing systematic stress fractures, she explained during an emergency strategy session. Criminal organizations resent loss of territorial control, while corporate security views local criminals as increasing liabilities. Their attempts to maintain operational security are actually accelerating internal breakdown. As evening approached, Sister Carmen returned from community coordination with significant observations. Los Diablos members are beginning to question their role, she reported. The criminal organization feels increasingly marginalized as corporate security assumes greater control. Some members are considering sharing information to protect their local interests. The deteriorating situation became clear through Sister Angela's analysis. The corporate criminal alliance wasn't simply experiencing operational friction, it was undergoing fundamental structural breakdown as pressure exposed the inherent contradictions in their organizational model. Their internal conflicts provide documentation opportunities, she explained during the night's planning session. As the alliance fragments, both criminal organizations and corporate security become more vulnerable to exposure. Their efforts to maintain control actually generate additional evidence of systematic pharmaceutical company involvement. Night brought increased evidence of organizational dysfunction as corporate security teams implemented stringent containment protocols that further alienated criminal elements. Sister Angela's network observed growing incidents of non-cooperation, information leakage, and open hostility between alliance partners. Strategic documentation must now focus on alliance breakdown, she instructed her resistance network. Every internal conflict provides additional evidence of systematic corporate involvement. Their efforts to maintain security through increasing control actually accelerate organizational fragmentation. As midnight approached, Sister Angela completed her strategic assessment. The resistance had evolved into a sophisticated operation exploiting fundamental weaknesses in the corporate criminal alliance. Their objective wasn't just continuing documentation, but leveraging internal conflicts to generate additional evidence of systematic pharmaceutical company involvement in unauthorized research. The battle had transformed into a complex campaign of organizational disruption through strategic pressure. Corporate security might control research operations, but Sister Angela's network was now positioned to document something far more significant, clear evidence of how pharmaceutical companies' efforts to maintain control were actually destroying their operational alliance with criminal organizations. Sunday marked a decisive shift as Sister Angela's documented evidence began reaching international audiences. The systematic exposure of pharmaceutical companies' unauthorized research network triggered coordinated responses from global regulatory authorities and media organizations. Sister Carmen initiated the morning with critical updates about growing international attention. Major news organizations are beginning independent investigations, she reported during early preparations. Regulatory agencies from multiple countries have launched formal inquiries into pharmaceutical company operations. Our documentation has catalyzed systematic examination of corporate research activities in vulnerable communities worldwide. Sister Angela assessed these developments through her experience with international exposure campaigns. The evidence has reached critical mass, she explained during a secure briefing. Documentation of pharmaceutical companies' unauthorized research operations has attracted coordinated attention from regulatory authorities, investigative journalists, and international oversight organizations. Eduardo Torres provided crucial information about corporate responses through his business connections. Pharmaceutical company stocks are experiencing significant declines, he detailed while reviewing financial reports. Market analysts are questioning corporate research practices, while institutional investors are demanding explanations for unauthorized operations in border communities. The morning's observations revealed increasing pressure on facility operations as corporate security struggled to maintain control amid growing international scrutiny. Sister Angela's network documented systematic attempts to conceal research activities, destroy evidence, and prevent further exposure of pharmaceutical company involvement. International attention creates operational vulnerabilities, Sister Angela explained to her leadership team. Corporate security must now balance containing local exposure with responding to global investigations. Their efforts to maintain operational security become increasingly difficult under coordinated scrutiny. By midday, Isabella's grandson delivered crucial intelligence about deteriorating facility conditions. Corporate management is implementing emergency protocols, he reported. They're attempting to sanitize research operations while preparing for potential regulatory investigations. Professional security teams are struggling to maintain containment as pressure increases. Sister Angela's strategic assessment recognized patterns of systematic corporate breakdown she had observed during previous exposure campaigns. The pharmaceutical company's unauthorized research network was collapsing under coordinated international pressure. The afternoon brought clear evidence of corporate crisis response when senior pharmaceutical executives arrived to manage growing exposure. Sister Angela's observers documented increasing attempts to implement damage control measures as corporate leadership confronted the scale of potential exposure. The operation faces systematic collapse, she explained during an emergency strategy session. Corporate efforts to contain exposure are actually generating additional evidence of pharmaceutical company involvement in unauthorized research. Their crisis response confirms patterns documented in our evidence. As evening approached, Sister Carmen returned from international coordination with significant developments. Regulatory authorities are implementing coordinated investigations, she reported. Multiple countries are examining pharmaceutical company operations in vulnerable communities. Our documentation has initiated systematic review of corporate research practices. The situation's global implications became clear through Sister Angela's analysis. The exposure wasn't simply affecting individual facilities. It was triggering comprehensive examination of pharmaceutical companies' systematic exploitation of vulnerable communities for unauthorized research. International pressure creates documentation opportunities, she explained during the night's planning session. Corporate crisis response generates additional evidence of systematic involvement. Their efforts to contain exposure actually confirm patterns established in our documentation. Night brought increased evidence of operational breakdown as corporate security struggled to maintain control amid growing international scrutiny. Sister Angela's network observed systematic attempts to destroy evidence, conceal research activities, and prevent further documentation of pharmaceutical company involvement. Strategic focus must shift to preserving evidence, she instructed her resistance network. Corporate attempts to contain exposure will intensify as international pressure increases. Maintaining comprehensive documentation becomes crucial as pharmaceutical companies implement crisis response measures. As midnight approached, Sister Angela completed her strategic assessment. The resistance had evolved into a sophisticated operation, leveraging international exposure to generate additional evidence of systematic pharmaceutical company involvement in unauthorized research. The battle had transformed into a complex campaign of global accountability through coordinated exposure. Corporate security might attempt to contain local evidence, but Sister Angela's network was now positioned to document something far more significant. Clear patterns of how pharmaceutical companies' crisis response confirmed systematic exploitation of vulnerable communities worldwide. Tomorrow would bring new challenges as they worked to maintain documentation amid intensifying corporate crisis response. But Sister Angela had faced similar challenges during her years leading resistance movements. The key wasn't just preserving evidence, it was methodically documenting how pharmaceutical companies' attempts to contain exposure actually generated additional proof of systematic unauthorized research that couldn't be denied or concealed. Monday heralded the beginning of coordinated international action against the pharmaceutical company's unauthorized research network. Regulatory authorities from multiple nations initiated formal proceedings, while corporate executives faced mounting legal consequences for systematic exploitation of vulnerable communities. Sister Carmen began the day with critical updates about expanding legal action. Prosecutors in 12 countries have launched formal investigations, she reported during morning preparations. International arrest warrants have been issued for senior pharmaceutical executives. Regulatory authorities are implementing coordinated enforcement actions against corporate research operations worldwide. Sister Angela analyzed these developments through her extensive experience with international justice campaigns. The legal response has reached decisive momentum, she explained during a secure briefing. Documentation of systematic corporate exploitation has triggered comprehensive regulatory action. Pharmaceutical companies now face coordinated legal consequences for unauthorized research operations. Eduardo Torres provided crucial information about corporate legal exposure through his business connections. Multiple class action lawsuits have been filed, he detailed while reviewing legal documents. Shareholders are initiating legal proceedings against corporate leadership, while international human rights organizations are pursuing criminal charges for systematic exploitation of vulnerable communities. The morning's observations revealed increasing pressure on corporate operations as legal authorities implemented coordinated enforcement actions. Sister Angela's network documented systematic attempts by pharmaceutical companies to manage mounting legal exposure while maintaining operational security. Legal pressure creates strategic opportunities, Sister Angela explained to her leadership team. Corporate attempts to avoid prosecution generate additional evidence of systematic involvement. Their legal defense measures actually confirm patterns established in our documentation. By midday, Isabella's grandson delivered crucial intelligence about deteriorating corporate control. Senior executives are implementing crisis protocols, he reported. Legal teams are attempting to contain exposure while preparing for international prosecution. Corporate security struggles to maintain operational integrity amid expanding investigations. Sister Angela's strategic assessment recognized patterns of systematic corporate collapse she had observed during previous justice campaigns. The pharmaceutical company's unauthorized research network faced comprehensive legal consequences under coordinated international pressure. The afternoon brought clear evidence of corporate crisis when legal teams arrived to manage mounting exposure. Sister Angela's observers documented increasing attempts to implement legal defense measures as corporate leadership confronted potential criminal prosecution. The operation faces systematic legal accountability, she explained during an emergency strategy session. Corporate efforts to avoid prosecution are generating additional evidence of pharmaceutical company involvement in unauthorized research. Their legal response confirms patterns documented in our evidence. As evening approached, Sister Carmen returned from international coordination with significant developments. Multiple jurisdictions are implementing enforcement actions, she reported. Regulatory authorities are securing research facilities while prosecutors prepare criminal cases. Our documentation has initiated systematic legal accountability for corporate exploitation. The scope of legal consequences became clear through Sister Angela's analysis. The prosecution wasn't simply targeting individual facilities, it was implementing comprehensive legal action against pharmaceutical companies' systematic exploitation of vulnerable communities for unauthorized research. International legal pressure creates documentation opportunities, she explained during the night's planning session. Corporate legal defense generates additional evidence of systematic involvement. Their efforts to avoid prosecution actually confirm patterns established in our documentation. Night brought increased evidence of corporate breakdown as legal. Authorities implemented coordinated enforcement actions. Sister Angela's network observed systematic attempts to manage legal exposure, contain evidence, and prevent further documentation of pharmaceutical company involvement in unauthorized research. Strategic focus must shift to supporting prosecution, she instructed her resistance network. Corporate attempts to avoid legal consequences will intensify as international pressure increases. Maintaining comprehensive documentation becomes crucial as pharmaceutical companies implement legal defense measures. As midnight approached, Sister Angela completed her strategic assessment. The resistance had evolved into a sophisticated operation supporting coordinated legal action against systematic corporate exploitation. Their objective wasn't just maintaining documentation, but ensuring comprehensive prosecution of pharmaceutical companies' unauthorized research operations. The battle had transformed into a complex campaign of international justice through coordinated legal action. Corporate legal teams might attempt to avoid prosecution, but Sister Angela's network was now positioned to support something far more significant: clear evidence of how pharmaceutical companies' legal defense confirmed systematic exploitation of vulnerable communities worldwide. Tomorrow would bring new challenges as they worked to support prosecution amid intensifying corporate legal defense. But Sister Angela had faced similar challenges during her years leading resistance movements. The key wasn't just preserving evidence. It was methodically documenting how pharmaceutical companies' attempts to avoid legal consequences actually generated additional proof of systematic unauthorized research that couldn't be denied or concealed in any court of law. Tuesday marked a profound transformation in Santa Rosa as the community emerged from the shadow of corporate exploitation into a model of collective resilience. The systematic exposure of pharmaceutical companies' unauthorized research had catalyzed lasting changes in how the community organized and protected itself. Sister Carmen initiated the morning with observations about evolving community dynamics. The networks we established for gathering evidence have become permanent structures for community coordination, she reported during daily preparations. Neighborhood groups maintain sophisticated information sharing, while local businesses implement coordinated security measures. Our resistance infrastructure has evolved into lasting community organization. Sister Angela assessed these developments. Through her experience with post-conflict community building, the transformation extends beyond immediate security, she explained during a leadership meeting. The community has discovered its collective strength through organizing against corporate exploitation. These new networks of cooperation and mutual support represent fundamental changes in how the community functions. Eduardo Torres provided crucial insight into evolving business practices through his commercial connections. Local enterprises have established permanent coordination systems, he detailed while reviewing community initiatives. Businesses share security information, pool resources, and maintain collective vigilance against potential threats. The resistance network has become a model for sustainable community protection. The morning's observations revealed sophisticated community organization as neighborhood groups implemented coordinated security measures. Sister Angela's network documented systematic cooperation between residents, businesses, and community organizations in maintaining collective security. The community has fundamentally transformed, Sister Angela explained to her leadership team. Our resistance against corporate exploitation has evolved into permanent structures for community protection and coordination. The networks we built for gathering evidence now serve broader community needs. By midday, Isabella's grandson delivered crucial observations about changing community dynamics. Neighborhoods maintain sophisticated communication systems, he reported. Residents coordinate security measures while sharing resources and information. The community has internalized resistance tactics as standard operating procedures. Sister Angela's strategic assessment recognized patterns of lasting transformation she had observed during previous community organizing campaigns. Santa Rosa had evolved from isolated vulnerability into coordinated resilience through systematic resistance against corporate exploitation. The afternoon brought clear evidence of community evolution when neighborhood groups implemented coordinated security protocols. Sister Angela's observers documented increasing sophistication in how the community organized to protect itself while maintaining strong networks of mutual support. The transformation represents systematic change, she explained during a community meeting. Our resistance against pharmaceutical companies has created lasting structures for community coordination. The networks we established for protection have become permanent features of community organization. As evening approached, Sister Carmen returned from community coordination with significant observations. Residents maintain sophisticated security awareness, she reported. Neighborhoods implement coordinated protection measures while strengthening networks of mutual support. Our resistance methods have become standard community practices. The scope of community transformation became clear through Sister Angela's analysis. The changes weren't simply affecting security measures, they represented fundamental evolution in how the community organized and protected itself against potential exploitation. The transformation creates lasting resilience, she explained during the night's community session. Our resistance networks have evolved into permanent structures for community coordination. The methods we developed for protection now serve broader community needs. Night brought increased evidence of community sophistication as neighborhood groups maintained coordinated security measures. Sister Angela's network observed systematic implementation of protection protocols, resource sharing, and information coordination across the community. Our focus must shift to sustaining transformation, she instructed community leaders. The networks we built for resistance now provide foundations for lasting community organization. Maintaining these structures ensures continued protection against potential exploitation. As midnight approached, Sister Angela completed her assessment of community evolution. The resistance had transformed Santa Rosa from vulnerable isolation into sophisticated coordination. Their objective wasn't just maintaining security, but ensuring lasting community resilience through permanent networks of mutual support and protection. The community had emerged stronger from its battle against corporate exploitation. While pharmaceutical companies had sought to exploit Santa Rosa's perceived vulnerability, they had inadvertently catalyzed the community's transformation into a model of collective strength and sophisticated organization that would ensure no future attempts at exploitation could succeed. The final phase of Santa Rosa's transformation crystallized as the community's model of resistance spread beyond its borders, inspiring similar transformations in vulnerable communities worldwide. What had begun as one nun's stand against criminal exploitation had evolved into an international movement for community empowerment and corporate accountability. Sister Carmen initiated the morning with reports about expanding influence. Delegations from communities across Latin America are arriving to study our methods, she reported during dawn prayers. They seek to understand how Santa Rosa transformed. From vulnerability to sophisticated organization, our resistance model is becoming a template for systematic community protection against exploitation. Sister Angela assessed this legacy through decades of resistance experience. The transformation transcends our immediate victory, she explained during a leadership gathering. We've demonstrated that vulnerable communities can effectively organize against systematic exploitation. More importantly, we've created reproducible methods for community empowerment that others can adapt to their specific circumstances. Eduardo Torres provided crucial insight into spreading influence through his international business networks. Communities worldwide are implementing variations of our resistance model, he detailed while reviewing international communications. They're establishing sophisticated information-sharing networks, coordinated security measures, and mutual support systems based on Santa Rosa's example. The morning's observations revealed increasing numbers of visiting observers studying community organization methods. Sister Angela's network documented systematic efforts to share resistance tactics, protection strategies, and coordination protocols with representatives from other vulnerable communities. Our legacy extends beyond local transformation, Sister Angela explained to community leaders. The methods we developed for resisting corporate exploitation now provide a blueprint for community empowerment worldwide. Each successful implementation strengthens the international network of resistant communities. By midday, Isabella's grandson delivered crucial observations about expanding influence. Visiting groups are amazed by our community's sophistication, he reported. They're particularly interested in how we maintain coordinated security while strengthening social bonds. Our resistance methods are being adapted for diverse cultural contexts. Sister Angela's strategic assessment recognized patterns of systematic change she had observed during previous international movements. Santa Rosa's transformation from isolated vulnerability to sophisticated organization was catalyzing similar evolutions in communities worldwide. The afternoon brought clear evidence of expanding influence when additional delegations arrived to study community methods. Sister Angela's observers documented increasing requests for guidance in implementing resistance strategies, protection protocols, and coordination systems. Our experience provides crucial lessons, she explained during an international gathering. The transformation of Santa Rosa demonstrates that vulnerable communities can effectively resist systematic exploitation. More importantly, our methods can be adapted to protect communities across different cultural and social contexts. As evening approached, Sister Carmen returned from coordinating with international visitors with significant observations. Communities worldwide are implementing our resistance model, she reported. They're establishing sophisticated protection networks while strengthening social bonds. Our methods are being successfully adapted across diverse environments. The scope of international influence became clear through Sister Angela's analysis. The transformation wasn't simply inspiring other communities, it was providing proven methods for systematic resistance against corporate exploitation and community empowerment. Our legacy creates lasting change, she explained during the final community gathering. The networks we built for resistance now serve as models for community protection worldwide. Our methods provide foundations for international movement against systematic exploitation. Night brought increased evidence of expanding influence as more delegations arrived to study Santa Rosa's transformation. Sister Angela's network observed systematic efforts to share resistance tactics, protection strategies, and coordination protocols with international observers. Our focus must shift to supporting global transformation, she instructed community leaders. The methods we developed for resistance now serve broader movement for community empowerment. Supporting implementation in other communities strengthens international network against exploitation. As midnight approached, Sister Angela completed her final assessment. Santa Rosa's resistance had evolved from local protection into international movement for community empowerment. Their objective wasn't just maintaining local transformation, but supporting systematic change in vulnerable communities worldwide. The battle that began with one nun's stand against criminal exploitation had transformed into something far more significant, an international movement demonstrating that vulnerable communities could effectively resist systematic exploitation through sophisticated organization and coordinated action. As Sister Angela knelt for final prayers in Santa Rosa Mission, she reflected on how far they had come from those first moments of resistance. The Los Diablos had thought they faced a simple nun, never knowing she carried decades of resistance experience. The pharmaceutical companies had seen only a vulnerable community, never suspecting it would catalyze international movement against corporate exploitation. But most importantly, the community itself had discovered strengths it never knew it possessed. Through resistance, it had found not just protection, but transformation. Through coordinated action, it had developed not just security, but sophistication. Through shared struggle, it had built not just defense, but lasting legacy that would continue empowering vulnerable communities worldwide. The light of dawn touched Santa Rosa Mission's ancient stones as Sister Angela emerged from prayer. In the distance, more delegations approached to study their methods of resistance and transformation. The battle for Santa Rosa had ended, but its legacy was only beginning to unfold across an international movement for community empowerment and corporate accountability. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.